Hey everyone, this is Callie. Thanks so much for being here today. I am sharing a special STAMPtember exclusive set today for 2025 using Gina K's set called Shimmering Christmas. This set is a 6x8 stamp set with lots of beautiful, elegant images as always from Gina. And there are ornaments here that we're going to be using, but there are also some really pretty stars, snowflakes, and a beautiful Christmas tree. There is also a coordinating die set, and remember these are STAMPtember collaborations that are exclusive to Simon Says Stamp for this month only, and they're sold in limited quantity. Once it sells out, it will not be restocked. So let's get into my card here. I'm going to be doing embossing with these images using the ornaments, and they do stamp as a pair, which I like because with the two ornaments connected like this, it's a little bit sturdier and you know those string strands are going to stamp perfectly straight. So I'm going to stamp the set here, and without moving it in my MISTI so that I can re-stamp on this watercolor panel, I'm going to emboss this image first with gold embossing powder, heat set it, flip my panel and put it back in the MISTI so that way I'm not handling a wet and sticky stamp, if that makes sense. And then I will emboss that again, and then I'm going to stamp it a third time. I'm just going to shift my paper up. Again, it prevents me from having to mess with the stamp on my MISTI door. Each time I go to emboss, I'm going to prep it with some anti-static powder tool and then sprinkle on my gold embossing powder and then heat set that. I'm actually only going to use 5 of these, but since I stamped them in pairs, it's okay that I have an extra on here. Once I'm done embossing all of my images here, and I should also mention, if I haven't already, that I stamped and embossed these over watercolor cardstock because I really wanted a watercolor ornament feel. So I am going to flood the area of the circle portion of the ornament with water, and then I'll go in with some watercolor paint and just paint across these ornaments in a rainbow order. So once I get that paper nice and saturated with an even layer of water, I'm going to grab a little bit of paint pigment here and just apply it to the watercolor. And it's going to naturally bloom and spread, but because there are snowflakes on these ornaments, it's going to break that bloom up. So I'm making sure to spread and blend the two colors as best I can. So each ornament's going to have 2 colors. I did the first in red and a little bit of that golden orange, and you can see that kind of coral color come through as the 2 colors blend. This type of watercoloring is just really loose, and I'm not trying to be perfect with it at all, and I love the organic look to it as one color bleeds into the next. So just keep playing along until you like the color saturation and how they blend together. And even after I'm done with my 5 ornaments, I'm going to go back in and reapply some additional color because I want it to look more saturated. Watercolor does get softer in color and lighter as it dries. Okay, so I am working on my last ornament here, and then as I get to the very last color, I'm just going to go back to the red color. So we're going to get a blend across a full rainbow and circle back to that red. And here on this very last ornament, it does look a little bit brighter, more vibrant. So I went back to my first one to add more red and golden yellow ochre to that. And I'll do that with all of the ornaments until I'm happy with them. And then on a whim, I just decided to color this last ornament to see if I'd like it better or if I'd even use it. I don't end up using it, but that's okay. It didn't take me very long to watercolor it at all. I'm just going to finish adding some more color to these ornaments until I'm happy with it. And it's just a matter of adding a little bit of wet paint here and there to intensify some of the color around the edges and blending it towards the center. So when I am re-adding color, I want to make sure I'm re-wetting the entire ornament because I want to make sure there are no harsh lines. So that's just a handy tip for watercoloring if you decide to give it a try. You can give it a try with open images as well so you can see what I mean better since there are snowflakes on those ornaments. Now on a panel that is cut to 5 3/4 by 4 1/2, there's so just a 1/4 inch bigger than an A2 size panel, I am going to freehand some pines. And I wanted these pine branches to come out to look like the ornaments are hanging from a Christmas tree, basically. So I just watched some YouTube videos and decided I would give it a try. And it really only takes 2 colors of paint to add these flicks to emulate pine needles on these branches that I initially drew. So I'm just doing a flicking motion with paint and a little bit of water on my damp brush, and I'm just going to keep going over the areas until I'm happy with them. This is so relaxing, and again, I'm not trying to be perfect, so I feel like I love how it organically turned out, and I hope you'll give it a try too. Once I'm done with this more olive green color, I'm going to go in with a more dark teal color. Now, if you're interested in these colors, I've linked them on my blog. This one is the Phthalo green, I believe, in a blue shade. So it's just going to give it a little bit more vibrance, give it a little bit more contrasting color. And I'll just keep going until I'm happy with the fullness of these branches and limbs that are hanging on this card panel. And I like to trim down my panels after I'm done painting just to get some real sharp, crisp edges as I'm handling the paper, turning it and stuff like that. And I may be painting off the edge. So if I cut it off, I have a nice and clean, crisp edge. And that's really why I started with a panel that's bigger. So when I'm done with my painting here, I can trim it down to size, decide if I want to trim it even more to mat my card base. So anyway, I have finished watercoloring and freehanding my pine, and so now I'm going to die cut all of my ornaments because they've been set aside to dry for a while. I've die cut all of these ornaments here using the coordinating dies, and the dies do die cut each ornament separately, so that's nice too. Now I'm going to trim down the panel. I decided I would trim off 1/4 inch off all of the sides so that it's going to mat a card base with a 1/8 inch lip. So before I adhere these ornaments down, I'm just going to play with the layout and make sure that there's room for a sentiment in the bottom corner there. Then I'm going to use some 3D foam squares and attach them to the card panel for some dimension. And I also make sure to cut little strips of 3D foam strips for the string part of these ornament images as well. So I'll repeat that with all of the ornaments, and when I'm done attaching that last one, I can flip it over and just use a pair of scissors to cut off the overhang at the top. Okay, so now on to the sentiment. I'm going to emboss it in gold again, but this time just over some simple hammer mill white cardstock. I made sure to use some anti-static powder tool, even though you didn't see that. I don't want any stray embossing powder on this white cardstock. And then I use the coordinating dies to die cut this sentiment. And I'll use my little Gina K Intercut Mini machine. This one always sits on my desk. As you can see, it's well loved and often used. So I'll straighten that up on my card panel, and then I did attach this to a card base with 2 layers of cardstock underneath to give it a little bit more dimension, and that finishes my card. I really hope you enjoyed this watercolor project. If you liked it, do me a huge favor and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. All the information that I used for products will be linked below, as well as on my coordinating blog post. Thank you so much for watching this year's collaboration for STAMPtember 2025 for Gina K Designs.